Go unclog the toilet. Since you don't have kids or a real life, you might as well be useful. That was how my sister Beatrice greeted me at the door of my own vacation home. She didn't hug me. She just threw a dirty apron at my face while her friends trashed the living room I had spent 10 years saving to buy. She thought because I was single, my property was hers to claim and I was just there to clean up her mess. I caught the apron. I didn't scream. I didn't call the police. I just said, okay. Because I knew something she didn't. While she was playing Queen of the Castle, I had already sold the house out from under her feet. Before I tell you how I legally destroyed their finances in a single afternoon, drop a comment. Where are you watching from? And what time is it for you right now? I want to see how far this story travels. I pushed past a group of strangers in my hallway, head down, clutching the stained apron like a shield. The air smelled of stale beer and expensive perfume, a scent that perfectly captured my sister's lifestyle. To them, this cabin was just a backdrop for Instagram stories. A free venue to prove they were living the high life. To me, every beam and floorboard represented a shift I had worked, a holiday I had missed, and a scar I had earned. I own a chain of artisan bakeries. People hear bakery owner and think of cute cupcakes and dusting flour. They don't see the reality. They don't see me waking up at 3 in the morning every single day for 10 years. They don't see the burn marks on my forearms from industrial ovens that run at 500 degrees. They don't know that I missed my best friend's wedding because a freezer broke down, and I had to move $10,000 of inventory by hand in the middle of the night. Every dollar I have is covered in sweat and flour. Beatrice and Victoria? They call themselves lifestyle curators. In reality, they are professional parasites. They live their lives on credit cards, maxed out to the limit, and the emotional blackmail of our parents. They drive leased Rovers they can't afford and wear designer clothes they plan to return the next day. They look at my life, my paid-off condo, my savings, this cabin, and they don't see the work. They just see a resource. A communal pot that they are entitled to dip into because they have expenses and children, and I have nothing but time. I reached the utility closet and grabbed the bucket and bleach. My hands were steady, but my mind was flashing back to a dinner 6 months ago. It was my birthday, but we were eating at a restaurant Beatrice chose because she wanted to try the lobster. When the check came, nobody moved. My father Silas just looked at me. You've got this, right, Crystal? He'd said, sliding the leather folder toward me. Business is good this year. I had tried to protest. I told them I was saving for renovations. My mother, Marion, had reached across the table and patted my hand, using that soft, pitying voice she reserved for when she was picking my pocket. Oh, Crystal. Don't be greedy, she had said. Your sisters have families to support. You have so much, and you have nobody to spend it on. It's only right that you share the blessings. Don't be greedy. That phrase had been the soundtrack of my life. If I got an A, I had to tutor Victoria. If I bought a car, I had to drive Beatrice to her auditions. If I bought a house, I had to give them the keys. I was raised to believe that my success was a sin unless I used it to subsidize their failures. I walked into the downstairs bathroom. It was a wreck. Someone had been sick in the sink. The toilet was overflowing. The smell hit me like a physical blow. I dropped the bucket on the tile floor with a loud clang. For a second, I just stared at the porcelain. I thought about the thousands of croissants I had rolled to pay for the plumbing in this house. I thought about how my father would tell me to be the bigger person and just clean it up. I thought about how Beatrice was out there right now, drinking my wine, probably telling her friends that she graciously let me use the guest room. They thought I was in here scrubbing away my dignity, just like I always did. They thought I was the invisible ATM, dispensing cash and labor whenever they punched in the guilt code. But they were wrong. I wasn't scrubbing. I was done being the bigger person. Tonight, I was going to be the person who closed the account. I knelt on the cold tile floor, the smell of bile and cheap vodka stinging my nose. My knees popped as they hit the ceramic. I reached for the scrubbing brush, my hand hovering over the handle. In that second, time seemed to stretch. I could hear the bass thumping from the living room, the shrieks of laughter from people who were destroying my home. And yet, my body was moving on autopilot. I was reaching for the bleach. I was preparing to clean up their vomit. That is the question that stopped my hand in midair. Why was I, a CEO with 50 employees and a 7-figure business, about to scrub a toilet for a sister who had just insulted me? It wasn't because I was weak. It was because I was trained. For 30 years, my family had installed a very specific program in my brain. Utility equals love. If I fixed the problem, the yelling stopped. If I paid the bill, the tension vanished. If I cleaned the mess, I was the good one. I realized, staring at that dirty porcelain, that I was addicted to the relief that came after I served them. I was about to clean this toilet not because I had to, but because I wanted the dopamine hit of being useful. I wanted to buy my safety with labor. It was a trap. A trap of normalized cruelty that I had built my entire identity around. I believed that if I just worked hard enough, if I gave enough, eventually they would look at me and say, "Thank you, Crystal. We love you." But looking at the filth around me, the truth finally hit me. They were never going to say thank you. I wasn't a person to them. I was an appliance. You don't thank a dishwasher for washing dishes. You just kick it when it stops working. I picked up the brush. I cleaned the bathroom. But I didn't do it for them. I did it because I needed to clear the space to think. I scrubbed with a cold, mechanical precision. With every swipe of the sponge, I was scrubbing away the sister who begged for scraps of affection. I wasn't crying anymore. The good Crystal died on that bathroom floor. The woman who stood up 20 minutes later was someone else entirely. She was an auditor. I washed my hands, drying them on a towel that had been thrown in the corner. I walked out into the hallway, ignoring the noise from the living room. I needed to get to the guest room, the small, windowless box they allowed me to sleep in while they took the master suite. But as I passed the linen closet, something caught my eye. It was a piece of paper taped to the wall, right next to the stack of fresh towels. It was laminated. Professional. My heart did a slow, heavy thud against my ribs. I stepped closer. House rules. It said in bold, cheerful font. I scanned the list. No smoking. Quiet hours after 10 at night. Standard stuff. But then I saw the bottom line. Printed in red. For extra linens, firewood, or late checkout, please Venmo the host immediately. At Beatrice Luxury Stays. $50 fee applies. I froze. Beatrice Luxury Stays? This wasn't just a party. This wasn't just my sisters using my house for a weekend getaway. You don't laminate signs for a party. You don't have a dedicated Venmo handle for a family trip. This was a business. I stared at the sign, my mind racing. They weren't just mooching off me. They were monetizing me. They were selling access to my property, charging people fees for my firewood, and pocketing the cash while I paid the mortgage, the electricity, and the property tax. I pulled out my phone. I didn't shake. I didn't hesitate. I snapped a high-resolution photo of the sign. Then I took a photo of the mud on the floor. Then the strangers in the kitchen. I had come here to rest. But now, I had a job to do. I slipped into the guest room and locked the door. The party raged on outside, but inside, the silence was deafening. I opened my laptop. It was time to look at the numbers. The bass from the living room vibrated through the floorboards of the guest room, a rhythmic reminder of the disrespect happening just 10 feet away. I sat on the edge of the twin bed, my laptop glowing in the dark. My sisters thought I was in here crying, or sleeping off my tantrum. They were wrong. I wasn't sleeping. I was auditing. I opened my laptop and logged into my smart home dashboard. I didn't need to be a hacker to catch them. I just needed to be the owner. I pulled up the history for the smart lock on the front door. The screen populated with a long list of timestamps. I scrolled back. Last weekend. The weekend before. 3 weeks ago. Every single Friday, at roughly 4 in the afternoon, a unique temporary code was used to unlock the door. Every single Sunday at 11 in the morning, the door was locked. I cross-referenced the dates with the smart thermostat logs. On those same dates, the energy usage spiked massive amounts, heating the hot tub, blasting the AC, running the washer and dryer non-stop. I pulled up a calendar and started doing the math. Over the last 18 months, the cabin had been occupied for 72 weekends. My parents had asked to borrow it maybe 5 times. The rest? That was pure profit for Beatrice. I dug through the wastebasket in the corner of the room, looking for anything that might corroborate the house rules sign I'd seen earlier. At the bottom, crumpled under a used makeup wipe, I found it. A printed flyer. Luxury Mountain Escape. Hosted by B and Vic. $2,500 per weekend. Corporate rates available. I smoothed out the wrinkled paper next to my keyboard. $2,500 a weekend. Multiplied by the occupancy rate I was seeing in the logs. My calculator spat out the number. $48,000. I felt a cold rage settle in my gut. $48,000. That was the exact cost of the commercial dough mixer I had been saving up for 2 years to buy. That was the down payment on a second location I told myself I couldn't afford yet. They had stolen an entire future from me. Weekend by weekend. While I paid the electric bill they were racking up, I stood up and did a quick, silent survey of the room. I took photos of the gouges in the hardwood floor where someone had dragged heavy luggage. I photographed the cigarette burn on the velvet armchair. I estimated the repairs at $12,500, minimum. I had the logs. I had the flyer. But I needed one more thing. I needed undeniable proof that this was a transaction. Not just friends chipping in for gas. I needed them to walk into a trap of their own making. I picked up my phone and texted Elena. Elena was my college roommate, a shark of a woman who worked in corporate law and had a different last name than me. She knew about my family. She hated them almost as much as I did right now. I need a favor, I typed. Book the cabin. Right now. Contact Beatrice through the number on this flyer. Offer her double. $5,000. For a last-minute corporate retreat next weekend. Elena's reply came 3 dots later. On it. What's the catch? The catch is the paper trail. I wrote back. Tell her your company is strict about expenses. Tell her you can only send the money if the Venmo memo line explicitly says, rental deposit for glass cabin. OCT 12 to 14. Do not let her leave it blank. Do not let her write pizza or emojis. It has to say, rental. I waited. The minutes stretched out, punctuated by the drunken shrieks from the other room. I knew Beatrice. She was arrogant, but she was also desperate. She leased her lifestyle. She needed cash flow to keep up the charade. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed. It was a screenshot from Elena. It showed a Venmo transaction record. Minus $5,000. Sent to @Beatrice Luxury Stays. And there, in black and white text, was the memo. Rental deposit for glass cabin. Oct 12 to 14. Beatrice had accepted it instantly. Her greed was so blinding that she didn't even pause to think why a stranger would insist on such a specific label. She just saw the dollar signs and grabbed. I stared at the screen. That digital receipt wasn't just proof of income. It was proof of tax fraud. It was proof of operating an unlicensed business. It was the nail in the coffin. I closed my laptop. The party outside sounded different to me now. It didn't sound like a violation. It sounded like evidence. I waited exactly 1 week to spring the trap. I needed the memory of the apron incident to settle, to harden into a narrative where they were the victors and I was the sullen, defeated sister. I needed them arrogant. On Thursday evening, I sent a group text. Family Zoom at 7 tonight. Important. 10 minutes before the call. I went into my bathroom and prepped for the performance of my life. I tied my hair back in a messy bun, skipped the mascara, and applied a foundation that was 2 shades too pale for my skin tone. I wanted to look exhausted. I wanted to look broken. I put on an old, oversized sweatshirt instead of my usual tailored blazer. I sat down in front of my laptop, took a deep breath, and hit start meeting. Faces popped onto the screen one by one. My parents, Marion and Silas, looked concerned, or rather, annoyed, that their evening TV was interrupted. Beatrice and Victoria were squeezed into one frame, holding wine glasses, looking like they were ready to judge a talent show. Well, Beatrice said, not bothering to mute her TV in the background. Make it quick, Crystal. We have dinner reservations. I let my shoulders slump. I looked down at my hands, forcing a tremor into my voice. I've been thinking a lot about last weekend, I said, keeping my eyes low. And about what you said, Mom. About sharing. Marion perked up. Oh, honey. Did you finally understand? I did, I lied. I realized I can't manage the cabin anymore. It's too much work. The maintenance, the cleaning. I'm just a bakery owner. I don't know how to run a property like you guys do. I looked up at the screen. Beatrice and Victoria exchanged a look. It was a look of pure, unadulterated triumph. It was the look of a predator watching a gazelle limp. I want to transfer the deed, I said, dropping the bomb. I want to sign the house over to Mom and Dad. You guys can manage it. You can do whatever you want with it. I just want to be done with the stress. Silence. Then, chaos. Finally, Victoria clapped her hands. God, Crystal. It took you long enough to realize you were hoarding it. I think this is a very mature decision, my father, Silas said, nodding gravely. You're doing the right thing for the family, Crystal. It's too much responsibility for a single woman anyway. Beatrice took a long sip of her wine, her eyes glittering. We'll need to redecorate, obviously. That farmhouse chic is so 2018. But we can make it work. We can turn it into a real asset. They were already spending the money. They were already painting the walls. They didn't ask if I wanted to keep a key. They didn't ask if I wanted compensation. They just opened their mouths to swallow my hard work whole. I set up an appointment with my lawyer, Mr. Henderson. For tomorrow at 2 in the afternoon, I said. You all need to be there. Bring your IDs. We need to sign the transfer papers to make it official. We'll be there, Beatrice said, beaming. Don't be late this time, Crystal. I ended the call and wiped the makeup from my face, staring at my reflection. They thought they had broken me. They believed they were walking into that office to claim their inheritance. They had no idea they were stepping into a trap. Henderson and Associates occupied the 42nd floor of a glass tower built to intimidate mahogany tables. Silent walls. Pressure in the air. I sat at the head of the table beside Mr. Henderson and a stenographer I had hired to record every word. At 1:55 p.m., Beatrice and Victoria arrived in sunglasses and leased designer bags, followed by my parents, hopeful and uneasy. Beatrice tossed her purse onto the table and complained about parking, already asking where to sign and talking about remodeling the house. Before anything else, Henderson slid a thick, blue-bound file across the table. "This is not a transfer," he said. "It's a notice of intent to file a civil lien." I dimmed the room and projected spreadsheets, 18 months of smart lock entries and power spikes lining up perfectly with Beatrice's weekend rental ads. Then a Venmo screenshot appeared, clearly labeled rental deposit. "You ran an unlicensed rental," I said calmly. $48,000 while I paid the mortgage. "And that's tax evasion." Beatrice exploded, claiming it was nothing, but Henderson cut in. "My client filed with the IRS this morning. Separately. You owe her $60,500 for theft and damage. We've recorded lis pendens against both your homes." Victoria screamed. Beatrice went pale. Their assets were frozen. A process server entered and dropped summonses into their laps. "You can't do this," Beatrice whispered. "You should have thought of that," I replied, "before you treated me like staff." She shouted about the cabin, her income, her leverage. "What cabin?" I asked. "I sold it 3 days ago," I said evenly. "A REIT bought it in cash. Locks changed this morning. Go back and you're trespassing." My mother turned on me instead of them, accusing me of cruelty. I stood, unmoved. "I'm not ruining them. I'm letting them face consequences you protected them from for 30 years. And since you co-signed their loans, you'll be paying their legal fees, not me." I left, blocked 4 numbers in the elevator, and didn't look back. 6 months later, my sisters are buried in audits. My parents are draining retirement funds to rescue them. I used the cabin money to open a second bakery in another state. I don't own a cabin anymore. I own peace. I wake up, smell yeast rising, drink my coffee, and enjoy the sound of silence. If you believe family doesn't get a free pass to abuse you, subscribe. I tell stories like this every week.